Not only humans, but most of the creatures on Earth is also a social animal. We all need each other's help and assistance to grow and live in the end. This heartwarming tale of bravery, compassion, and trust as a Siberian wolf allowed one hospital worker to approach him, and in doing so, taught us all a valuable lesson about empathy and the bonds that exist between all living beings will just make your day and change the way you see life. Don't miss this unbelievable true story of a wolf's visit to a hospital and the reason behind it. The personnel at a hospital were shocked and horrified when a Siberian wolf entered the premises and refused to leave. Yet, they were utterly overwhelmed when they understood why it was there. This is a story of a city hospital in Russia. The huge sprawling structure was built on the outskirts of the city, next to a vast forest. It was the ideal location since, in addition to providing the patients with stunning views of the enormous forest, it also meant that the air was fresh and pleasant, which was ideal for those who were recovering or undergoing rehabilitation. The hospital's grounds had seats, flower beds, freshly mowed fields, and even a duck pond. That felt like the perfect location to preserve the stunning vistas. Even the hospital's parking lot and ambulance base were restricted to one side of the building. It should go without saying that the hospital grounds were among the most peaceful areas in the city. Even healthy individuals would visit these areas merely to take a stroll and enjoy the serenity and fresh air, regardless of whether they were unwell or injured. Then, something occurred here one day that no one could have ever thought of. A large Siberian wolf emerged from the woods and just sauntered into the hospital, as if the hospital grounds were all its domain since they bordered the forest right up to the edge. Of course, folks enjoying the peace and the beautiful scenery were more than perturbed by this sudden intimidating presence. An enormous wolf was on the hunt, and people began shrieking and fleeing, warning others to hide or escape for life. Although some individuals fled, others froze in place out of fear. Although being in a city so near a forest, they had never really encountered a wolf in the wild. Yet, the wolf didn't react except watch the terrified folks from a distance. It didn't seem to be furious or hungry. It continued to observe intently, as if it also came here to have a walk in peace. It intuitively knew to avoid people since it was a wild animal, yet it was perplexed by their peculiar mannerisms. The wolf continued to go slowly while making an effort to ignore the commotion around him. But why was it there? What could be the possible reasons? The reason will undoubtedly surprise you and make you emotional. Even though the hospital's grounds were immediately adjacent to a forest, it was very uncommon for animals to get inside the grounds. Deer and other stray animals were sometimes among them. When they saw a person, they just skittered back to safety. Yet, the animals remained tucked behind in the woods. It was thus unusual for a wolf to go about the hospital grounds in such a cavalier manner. No one could even recall a similar incident occurring in the past. But not everyone was in a panic. Otto, a paramedic, observed the wolf with interest. He was aware that animals like wolves don't simply happen to stray into hotly contested places like this, since he had previously worked at a zoo. Otto first believed that the animal may be hunting, but the wolf wasn't behaving as if it required food. Maybe the wolf was lost. That is not possible, of course. It would instinctively know to stay in the protection of the trees and avoid going into open ground. Otto was forced to conclude that the wolf was around for a cause. So what could this be? Otto moved in the direction of the wolf. Everybody thought he was crazy and warned that he was marching towards certain death by the patients and personnel, who were all racing in the opposite direction. Otto, though, felt somewhat secure approaching the enormous wolf, since he thought the animal didn't intend any damage to them at all. To avoid startling the wolf and causing it to retreat, or even worse, attack, he went slowly and cautiously from this point on. If he had claimed not to feel anxious, he would have been lying, even though he was used to working with animals in captivity at the zoo, animals that were accustomed to people and often interacted with them. Confronting a wild animal was a whole other experience. Otto proceeded extremely carefully, but would his actions go fruitful, or would they take a gloomy and violent turn? With questions in mind, Otto approached the Siberian wolf and realized how large it was. It exceeded the size of any wolf he had ever had the pleasure of seeing or dealing with in the past. He observed the animal's paws, which were much larger than his hand and undoubtedly covered with razor-sharp claws. The fangs behind its enormous broad mouth must have also been capable of tearing flesh and shattering bones. Otto gasped, deciding that this plan was either very bold or extremely foolish. Whatever it was, there was no going back at this point. Otto was shocked to see that the wolf sat as peacefully and politely as a domestic dog. Much to his surprise, Otto was taken aback by the behavior, and he scowled a bit, still trying to make sense of why the wolf was there and why it was behaving in such an odd and unusual manner. He started to examine the wolf, seeking any indications of damage. He examined the wolf's eyes, legs, head, and when it began to pant, Otto was even able to see its mouth. While there were no immediately apparent issues, Otto's eyes widened in shock when he discovered why the wolf was there as it turned to the side. Otto turned his attention to the group of staff members and patients who had gathered quite a distance away from him and shouted to them that they did not need to be concerned about anything and that the wolf truly had come to them for a cause. Yet, for them to be of use, they will need to work rapidly and they will need to cooperate. They will need medical supplies, such as syringes, bandages, and instruments. Patients continued to watch as staff raced out to fetch precisely what Otto had requested, although they all remained perplexed as to what the issue was with the wolf. Several patients expressed a desire to get in touch with a veterinarian so that the animal could be put down, or even with some type of hunter who could come to their weapons and take care of the wolf. Yet, it seems that not everyone was as mean as the others. As soon as they proposed the suggestions, other patients immediately contradicted them and screamed them down. The presence of the wolf could hardly have been accidental. How do you think these individuals would have reacted if, as soon as they got to the hospital, the physicians opted to euthanize them rather than provide them with medical care? That was something that didn't even deserve to be thought about. So, why shouldn't we have some compassion for this wolf? If it was hurt and in need of assistance, then people need to do what they can to provide that help for it. What actually happened was that a bullet entered the pro-wolf via one side of its body. It has been common malpractice for hunters to enter the woods in search of animals like deer and other animals. But one of these hunters must have been particularly heartless or callous to aim his rifle at the Siberian wolf and fire a shot at it. Since the wolf had many little holes drilled in its side, the cartridge that he used must have been a back shot. They were bleeding, but a lot of the blood seemed dried up and matted as if it had occurred a few days or maybe a couple of days earlier. Otto was having trouble digesting the fact. He was stunned by what he was seeing, but what took him by surprise was when the wolf lay down on its side and let him work. Otto removed every back shot with painstaking effort and cleaned up the holes, bandaging the wounds that were left behind. The wolf didn't make much of a racket, and it simply whimpered every so often. The gathering had gotten a little bit closer, and many seemed to be suddenly more intrigued and concerned than anxious. Before rising to his feet and presenting Otto with a respectful nod of the head, the wolf pretended to merely lay there for a few seconds, as if he were just unwinding and getting well amid the beautiful surroundings of the hospital. With a thankful gesture, the enormous wolf then turned around and eloped back into the woods. Meanwhile, Otto, who was crazy a while ago, turned out a hero. Not only did he keep the people who were in the hospital grounds from going into a full-blown panic, but he also rescued a helpless wolf and provided medical care to it when it was in need. Otto was happy to be the one that the wolf put his faith in. That was the moment that he was going to remember for the rest of his life, and it was going to be a highlight of his career without a doubt. That's where we conclude the video, and it's your turn now to join the conversation. What do you think about this amazing tale? If you had seen a big Siberian wolf entering a hospital's premises, what would you have done, and how would you have responded if you had known why they were there in the first place? Please share your ideas and opinions in the box below. As usual, we would love to hear from you. We'll see you in the following video. Thanks for watching.